Hello, everyone. This is Matt Seaman. First of all, thank you, everyone, for attending. And I saw Sarah's comment that it's great to see people on that were also at the event, and hopefully a bunch of people on that were not at the event to get the recap. Feel free to ask questions during the session in the Zoom chat window, and we will try to get to those. Either Kelly, myself, or Greg will be paying attention to those as we go. Want to start off by saying it was an amazing event that we had at the Cliff House in Maine. And the image you see on the screen is of some dice that we had made for an opening, and they were a big hit. So look for some more interesting things like that in membership meetings to come. So the Member Summit 2019, we tried to keep with our theme of nice places, and it was at the Cliff House in Maine, which was a fantastic and lovely location, perfect for the event. People got to experience the coast of Maine. Being from New England and spending time in Maine, it was perfect that people got to experience some weather, large waves crashing over the rocks, beautiful sunshine and snow all over the course of 2.5 days. So the location seemed to be perfect for New England in the springtime, as well as a great hotel. We had a lot of interesting people, amazing discussions took place, and we had some great conversations that were either during the event, but also around the fire pit and at tables throughout the event. We had a lot of important topics. I think that open space was a huge success, and a little bit later, Kelly's going to talk about open space and some of the outcomes from open space, but we had great discussions both during open space and throughout the sessions on very important topics, and learned a lot about what companies are doing, what are on people's minds, and things to work on in the future. Creating space to think is one of the consortium's key deliverables at events, and we tried to create the space for people to think. We started off the meeting talking about letting go of all the work that we have every day and using it as an opportunity to explore discussions and meet new people and have conversations that you don't get to have every day. The hotel itself and the space of the hotel was conducive to that. There were a lot of small breakout areas, amazing views that people could see. And no matter where you walked, you found consortium members sitting around tables, having discussions and exploring the future. A little bit on what took place. So we had 100 attendees at the Member Summit. The summit was sold out again this year, and it was represented by 48 companies. So not only do we have 100 attendees, but we had 48 companies, 13 consortium innovators, and 5 board members attend. And this is a photo of the event space, the main event space, people doing some recap of what they learned during the week. For the sessions, we had 14 speakers over the course of 2 days, and then we had a full day of open space, which resulted in 26 open space topics, which is the most we've ever had. And we had 6 breakout sessions that were split into 2 different tracks, which we will talk about a little bit as well. But overall, the speakers were fantastic. I want to say thank you to everybody who was a speaker at the event. There was many conversations that took place and were spurred by those breakout sessions and by the speakers, as well as a lot of open space topics that came out of what was discussed during the breakout sessions and by the speakers. So the reaction to the speakers was fantastic, and I wanted to thank all the speakers for the amount of energy and effort they put into preparing for the event, as well as the openness and the way that they really sparked discussion and conversation for the rest of the time people were at the summit. We kicked off the summit talking a little bit about the design thinking principles of diverging conversations and converging conversations, and really exploring the art of the possible. We invited people to spend more time worrying about what is possible as opposed to how do you narrow to execution. We spend almost all of our time every day talking about how we narrow to execution. How do we deliver some sort of outcome? What do we have to do today to get out of an escalation, instead of using our minds to think about the art of the possible. And so we really encouraged the groups of people there to really explore where we could go, what were some of the things on their minds that maybe they don't get to talk about every day at work. And Diverging is often a squiggly, repetitive, goes in a lot of directions discussion, but that is what is exciting about a diverging discussion, and having a lot of really smart people in a room that can open up their minds and think about the art of the possible. So the layout of the 3 days was set up to try and foster that idea of diverging discussions. We started with the welcome and talking a little bit about the consortium's work and what is we see going on in the industry, what the consortium's initiatives are. Then we moved into a couple presentations, one on intelligent swarming and one on digital automation. Big knowledge and digital automation was the theme of the event. So we wanted to kind of get people thinking about digital automation and what digital automation means. Then we had our breakout sessions on the second half of the day. And again, those were broken into 2 tracks, and I'll talk a little bit more about those. Wednesday was a full day of open space. It's the first time that we've done a full day of open space, and the response from everybody has been over the top that it was an enjoyable experience. The energy level stayed incredibly high throughout the entire day, and I think that is something that we are going to look to incorporate into our future member summits, giving people that open time to explore discussions and talk about what's on their minds. On Thursday, we talked about the value of knowledge and planning for a digital world, and then adjourned by noon. So overall, this year was a little different than last year, where we did 2.5 full days instead of breaking it up into half-day sessions or having half days of open space. So we managed the agenda a little bit different this year, but it seemed to be a huge success. To talk a little bit about some of the trends that emerged, and we're going to talk in a little more detail about some of these trends and go through as we talk about the different sessions, you'll see this theme emerge. But there really were 4 trends that came out of all of the discussions. So digital automation, which was one of the themes, so obviously that was one of the trends, really emerged as something everybody is talking about. So how is machine learning going to change the customer experience? What are the different methodologies people are using, and how are they applying it? There's a lot of different ways that member companies are applying digital automation. There are many methodologies that they're using, and this was a theme that ran throughout the event. Everybody is talking about what is it that we can use machine learning capabilities to do. How is it already impacting the industry, and what will it do to the industry in the coming 2, 3, 4, 5 years? Intelligent swarming, collaboration is replacing the tiered support model. So that was a theme that ran through, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But a lot of people were talking about how collaboration is impacting their organizations, where collaboration can go, and something that everybody wanted to spend more time talking about. One of the trends that maybe we weren't anticipating but came out of the member summit is social media as a support channel. Now, we've done a lot of work on social media as a support channel. There's already a lot of information on the consortium website around social media as a support channel, but it seems like demand is rising for it, and it's time to take a look at it again. And where does social media fit in as a support channel against other support channels like self-help and assisted support? So this is something that maybe will turn into a team meeting or will turn into some web sessions, but there was a lot of discussion around social media as that support channel, and what do we need to do as companies to begin reacting to social media. Dell incorporated some of that into their discussion on the predictive and machine learning capabilities as well, in a very interesting discussion. And then just reinforcing that KCS is the great enabler, and knowledge management really enables all of these other things to advance and take place. So KCS is the great enabler, and it is really what's driving a lot of the abilities of companies to do things around machine learning or swarming or social media. So a trend that we know, but it's always nice to see it being reinforced. So the 5 consortium initiatives, we reviewed each initiative in a little bit of detail, not going into too much detail, but talking about intelligent swarming, the predictive customer engagement, customer experience, leadership in the adaptive organization, and knowledge-centered services. So these are things the consortium has been talking about for a few years now, and we reviewed that with the membership to kind of set the stage of the foundational work that's being done and pose the question of what are the next things we should be working on. So what is the sixth initiative, which after some of the open space sessions turned into maybe we should have 4 initiatives. So that's something we'll be exploring. But after reviewing the 5 initiatives, we dove into intelligent swarming. And Greg and Carla talked about the intelligent swarming framework that has been released. So we did release the intelligent swarming framework at the Members Summit. It is now live on the Consortium Library website, which the link is down here. If you go to the Consortium for Service Innovation website, you will see it prominently there. So it was something that we are proud to be releasing. A lot of people did a lot of work on it, and Greg and Carla did a great job kind of explaining what intelligent swarming is, the impact it can have, and the way it's challenging the 30 years of accepted practices within sport organizations. And we expect this is something that will become a bigger and bigger topic as companies begin to implement the framework in the coming year and beyond.
One tiny thing on that last slide. Sorry, excuse me. We are also anticipating releasing the Intelligent Swarming Architect certification coming up probably by the end of May, which is a certification for people who are designing intelligent swarming implementations. So that's also on the radar. And I've put a couple links in the chat, including the link to this new framework.
Great, excellent, thank you, Kelly. So automation as an enabler, we had Corey Myers from Cisco talk a little bit about what Cisco is doing around automation. And it was a great way to set the stage for the rest of the summit because he really talked about 3 things that Cisco is doing. So augmenting information for use by engineers. So how do you take knowledge and how do you take information, digitize it, and incorporate it into your systems so that as your engineers are working, they get machine learning to help them get access to information faster and augmenting how that they're doing their jobs. So not replacing engineers, but augmenting the engineers. And we at the consortium are definitely seeing the trend and believe that machine learning capabilities will help us augment what people are doing and make it so that they are focusing on new and challenging discussions, new and challenging problems, instead of answering the same questions over and over. Similar to augmenting information used by the engineers is augmenting the information that customers are using. So how do you do more through self-service and proactive outreach programs using machine learning and digital automation? Again, capturing that knowledge, digitizing it, incorporating it into your external systems for self-service and proactive outreach, and then eliminating work by finding root causes and changing the products. Cisco seems to have a mature model for learning from these problems and having machines identify things going on with their software, which allow them to update the product so that those problems are eliminated, literally eliminating work from the engineers. So it was a great talk by Corey. He kind of set the stage for a lot of the other discussions that were to follow. And his presentation, as well as all the presentations, are on the Consortium Library Wiki. The breakout sessions were broken into 2 tracks. So we had a track on digital automation and then one focused more on KCS. Within the digital automation track, we had presentations by Blizzard, PTC, and Dell EMC. Each one of them was very well attended, sparked a lot of discussion, and really pushed people's thinking. Blizzard, more than anybody, kind of set a new tagline that a lot of people are probably going to be using, which is get back in the game. And really it's about how can you get people back into the game as fast as possible. So if you think about a gaming company, as their customers are using games, when they have a problem, they need to get back in the game as quick as possible. So how are they using machine learning and KCS to evolve the products, the processes, and the content to allow people to get back in the game quicker? PTC talked about how they're amplifying human intelligence through automation. Dan Nowitz did a presentation that covered a range of topics on things PTC is doing using machine learning to help employees and customers. So they're taking an approach not just focusing on self-service and customer, but also how do you improve the experience of an employee when interacting with knowledge and information through machine learning and artificial intelligence. David Bohl from Dell EMC talked about how do you identify somebody who's on a journey of dissatisfaction and then proactively take action. David's really focused in on social media support. How is Dell EMC doing social media support? This sparked a lot of the discussions that came in the next day around social media as a channel for support. So Dell has already identified a methodology, processes. They have hundreds of engineers that are doing social media support. One of the most mature that I've seen, and was one of the catalysts for a lot of the discussions that took place in the next couple of days. The second set of breakout sessions was more focused on KCS and was done by MindTouch, Fidelity, and Akamai. Sarah Feldman from MindTouch really set the stage for what is the future of content and how do you bring together content strategy and knowledge management. Knowledge management uses the words that we use. Content strategy uses different words that mean the exact same things. There's some confusion when we're talking about content strategy and content versus knowledge management. How do we unify that approach and align it to the consumer's intent? It was a great talk. A lot of that came out of a team meeting that took place in Phoenix where Sarah presented and started to get us excited by how we could leverage these two different worlds, bring them together, and maybe change some of the language to make sure we're reaching a broader audience. This is definitely a topic that we'll be continuing to talk about and continuing to look at probably in team meetings and webinars in the future. KCS is Agile Knowledge Management. So Stephanie Gloden from Fidelity gave a talk on KCS and Agile at scale. So at Fidelity, they're doing Agile at the enterprise, and Stephanie has spoken a couple times at different events now about how Agile practices and knowledge management practices really are similar and how we can learn and leverage Agile to help with our knowledge management best practices. Then Monica talked about sustaining a KCS program through KDEs and coaching. It was focused around Star Wars, and a lot of people were talking about it, and we put a picture of her slide up there in the doing the Kessel run in less than 12 parsecs. So she did a fantastic job on that.
I just have to jump in here because I think you were not in the room, Matt. You were in the other track.
Yep.
And I was in with Monique, and I'm a huge Star Wars fan as well, although no one I know is as big a Star Wars fan as Monique is. And this particular slide was, do not attempt the Kessel run in less than 12 parsecs because you really have to iterate. This is all about, iterating on your program and not trying to boil the ocean. But instead of saying boiling the ocean now, I'm going to refer to it as not attempting the Kessel run in 12 parsecs.
Monique also posted on LinkedIn, I don't know if we want to put the link in here, Kelly, but a great summary from her perspective of the member summit. So I would suggest going and reading that. She did a fantastic job summarizing it as well on in LinkedIn.
I will do that.
So wanted to talk a little bit about open space since we did it a little different this year as we did a full day event. Kelly kicked it off and ran it, and I'm going to pass it over to Kelly to talk a little bit about what came out of open space as well as maybe show us some of the outcomes.
I am sharing my screen right now so we can take a look at the members only wiki here. So this is where we captured all the notes and presentations, and this is available to members. If you need help logging in, please let me know. There's a great photo album that we keep adding photos to. We're happy to add your photos if you have some that you want to share. We were pretty active on Twitter last week. And then I'm going to bring you down here to day 2, open space sessions. We have done open space at a lot of previous events, and usually it's been a half-day event, and it's consistently rated the highest in terms of enjoyment and in terms of people getting things out of their time at a consortium event. And so we thought this year we would try this full day open space setup, and the methodology was really designed for a 1 to 3 day session. And so it felt a little scary, even though it was designed to be this sort of longer type of interaction. we thought, okay, I guess we'll go ahead and try it. And man, it just really solidified my enjoyment of and my faith in this methodology in terms of allowing people to talk to each other about things that they were passionate about. So we had 4 separate sessions. We had 26 total topics that people talked about. I'm collecting notes still from people, although I have them from quite a few of these folks. There were just some really interesting conversations that happened. And some of them were just a conversation that helped people provide, some clarity around the topic. And others of them, I think, will be ongoing conversations. So, this particular topic about how you consistently measure self-service success and not deflection, I think is a topic that will carry on, has been happening and will carry on for quite a while. Lots of talk about the sort of the interaction between humans and AI. And one of these topics that really I thought was interesting and made me laugh was leveraging humans in an AI-driven world. That was a 3:00 session. The other, so Matt mentioned previously, there's a conversation that happened around what is the 6th initiative. So we have organized Consortium's work into 5 initiatives over the last probably 3 or 5 years. And so what is that 6th initiative? What are we missing and what should we be talking about? And I spent a little bit of time in that session and laughed later when I heard that actually where they had come to was we perhaps need to collapse one of the initiatives and get that down to 4 as opposed to adding another one to make it 6. So the other conversation that I think will keep happening, it was largely around, and I don't see where it went. Oh, it's up here. The knowledge domain analysis work is a very hot topic, and in part because it ties in sort of the KCS methodology as we're working on it right now. And this is perhaps the place where we start leveraging that digital automation and all of the data that we have and how we look at patterns and where we apply automation. And so who does it, who's responsible for it, what do those look like in terms of what activities are fall under the realm of the knowledge domain analysis. And my favorite sort of takeaway from that is we have been thinking about a KDE as a specific role, right? The knowledge domain expert, somebody who needs to be able to do a whole bunch of things and have a whole bunch of experience in kind of across disciplinary view of the world. And so we've been spending our time looking for this rock star person to do these things. And actually what we really need is to implement a rock band, right? So it's going to have to be cross-functional, and we're going to have multiple people involved in these things. So that's a topic that I'm very much looking forward to continuing. And I'm hopeful that we'll have a team meeting dedicated to that probably in September. So mark your calendars for that. So, and there were a bunch of people on the phone with us who were there. And so if anybody would like to throw out anything about your experience of that full day of open space, please feel free. And I will throw the ball back to Matt here.
So this is Greg, just a quick comment on the KDE role. I think in the practice guidance versions, we started talking about it as a function.
Yes.
The KDA, knowledge domain analysis, as a function, and the KDE might be a facilitator of that function rather than the rock star. And so it was great to hear actually confirmation of that concept, that it's actually more than a role. It's more like a function that lots of people should be participating in, including data scientists. So,
right.
Some good evolution there. As opposed to bad evolution.
Yeah, I'd also like to point out it was amazing how people self-organized around open space. Usually open space, there's a period of chaos that seems to take place in trying to organize the board, organize the slots when people were going to meet and what rooms to meet in. this is by far the fastest with the most complex and the largest group I've ever seen self-organize in 10 minutes to run through all their topics, put them on the board, combine ones they thought were combined, and break to go to the meetings. It was really impressive to watch, and I wish we had recorded it and we could show that as the kickoff for open space moving forward to see if we can beat our time. But
it's almost like swarming works. It's almost like collaboration is really a thing, might be a good thing.
That's more good evolution.
That's right. I think it also helped quite a bit that we had, I don't know, there must have been 15 people in the room or 20 people in the room that raised their hand saying they've done open space before, which that certainly helped kick things off too. So a great day of open space. And I wanted to make sure I also mentioned Kelly did a very good job of setting the stage and organizing it and making sure that everybody had the basis of what we were doing for the open space sessions.
Thanks.
All right, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Greg to talk a little bit about value erosion and the demand models. There was a great discussion on the demand models, and Greg's going to take us through a little bit more on that since it was a topic that had a lot of discussion.
Thanks, Matt. So I think the value erosion model has really proved to be valuable in helping people understand the customer experience. And so we continue to iterate on this. And in fact, Arnfinn and I just had a call just before this call with another iteration. And I think one motivation in reviewing these models is updating the Measurement Matters paper to include some of these concepts and also the measurements around how we do some of this stuff. So it's very much still a work in progress. I think it's maturing, and we're discovering the vocabulary that we need to use, or the definitions for the vocabulary that we do use, that really helps people understand it. So it starts with this idea of the blue line here is the customer expectations, and customer expectations really, the baseline for that is around capability, effort, and experience. And so customers have certain expectation of what they can accomplish with a product or service, how much effort it's going to take to get it done. And if you're in a service business like Disney or a restaurant where you're actually creating an experience, then the experience becomes a primary issue with respect to customer expectations. So that blue line, it's wavy. Customer expectations are constantly changing. In fact, the next iteration of this will show the line rising slightly because expectations are set not just by customers' experience with you in the past, you as a company, but their experiences with others in the industry influences their expectations, which in turn drives your behavior. So we've talked for quite some time about this concept of value erosion, where a customer issue occurs, and from that point in time, as the customer pursues resolutions, the value is eroding because they're not getting their work done. They're not having the experience they expected. They're working on some kind of an issue, which could be a question, a problem, a how-to, integration, installation. All those things may create a customer issue. So this concept of value erosion, and then next, click. And our goal, of course, is to minimize value erosion. And so the green line shows us moving to the left, back up this curve. And how do we improve the success rate of each of these steps that customers go through in trying to resolve an issue? And of course, the new one that's emerging is this idea of automation. And of course, automation is a huge topic. It actually, you can automate any one of these points along the curve. The big opportunity that we're trying to get at here with the green automation is detect, predict, or repair using automated capabilities. And so understanding and having a measurement model in place that lets us know how we're doing with each of those activities that customers engage in to resolve an issue is becoming an important element in terms of how you design dashboards and understand the whole network. And then looking at the customer demand model, also known as the funnel in the cloud. Many of you have seen this before. And many have seen it many times before. But what we're doing is shifting it from a left to right kind of model to a right to left model to support this idea of shift left. So the assisted is over there on the right side and interacting with the knowledge base, and then social and community interacting with the knowledge base. It may or may not be the same knowledge base. We do have one example from MathWorks where they've combined their community knowledge base with their support team knowledge base. They all work in the same space, which I think is inevitable over time. But there's some interaction with knowledge, and then enabling self-service, and ultimately that same knowledge and the health and quality of that knowledge is what really enables us to start to detect, predict, and repair in terms of being more proactive with customer issues. So this spectrum sort of aligns with and supports the shift from right to left. And if you think about the level of effort the customers engage in along the spectrum, it goes from high to low, again, moving from right to left. And the types of issues that customers are pursuing, quite often or ideally, I guess I should say, ideally, they're new issues that are coming through the assisted model. We really don't want to use our support staff to solve problems we've already solved or answer questions we've already answered. So the nature of the work across this model, now moving from right to left, is going from new to known. And social and communities, of course, is kind of a hybrid in that people will post questions that haven't been posted before, and people will also do a search and find a post to a question that's already been answered in social and communities. So it's both supporting both new and known kinds of activities. Self-service is, for the most part, things we already know about. And then in order to detect, predict, and repair, we really have to have a good base of knowledge on which to run machine learning algorithms and predictive algorithms to be good at that. Next slide. And so all of this, both the value erosion curve and the new alignment of these customer activities in terms of how they pursue finding answers to issues or resolutions to issues, is all about the shift left, which has become I think a pretty widely accepted concept in the support industry, in that we want to focus our energy on shifting left because it's good for us. It's for the people providing service. It's more efficient and cheaper. It's good for the customer in terms of reducing their effort and providing answers quicker, reducing their time to find the resolution. So those new models, this is the update to what we're calling the customer demand model and the value erosion model, and aligning it with kind of the industry norm of that concept of shift left. Next slide. And then one conversation we had that was very interesting at a team meeting a few months ago was looking at the demand flow. And so wouldn't it be interesting to know, for when customers instigate or initiate a self-service session, however they do that, to know what the success rate is, what percentage of those sessions actually become cases, and what percent do they pursue other means to find an answer, or do they abandon? And this was actually a point of discussion at the member summit where we updated this a little bit. So of all the sessions in self-service, that adds up to 100%. We'd want to know, what's that success rate? How many become cases? And then what percentage go to do other things or abandon? And then for those who are under the case creation model, which could be a chatbot or an online case submit kind of model, what percent are we able to satisfy with success? So if you're doing a case submit model where people fill out a form, and as they fill out this form on your self-service mechanism to submit a case, you start offering them articles that might answer the issue that they're asking about in the case that they're creating. Or if you're using a chatbot to automate that interaction, we're seeing and hearing from members that they're seeing about a 25% success rate with chatbots and or sort of intervening in the case creation process by offering articles that might answer the question that the customer is creating a case about. And then a pretty high percentage of those actually go in to become a case, and then a pretty low percent, around 10%, as an example, fall out as they don't, when they're done with the chatbot and it now offers them, would you like to chat with a support agent? They say no. And so there's some fallout from that. And then, of course, what we know best is the case statistics in terms of when somebody does submit a case and interacts with a support agent in the assisted model, what's the percent of success there? And what's the percent where they go pursue other actions or abandon? And I think, maybe the common perception is that when a case is closed, it means it was resolved. And I think that has an element of ambiguity in it, in that customers don't always come back and tell us that it actually solved their case. So I think understanding this flow, and again, each company will have different segments on their flow depending on their level of automation or self-service or chatbots or chat sessions with agents or how you open cases. But I think understanding the success, where people choose to continue the process to pursue an answer versus where they go do something else or abandon, really would help us optimize the customer experience in terms of, again, moving from the right to the left. We want to help customers be successful as far left as possible. So this flow model also kind of aligns with that concept of shift left. And I think we'll be working with the members. If anybody has data, so this again is an example. It's based on perception of what we hear from the members in terms of typical success rates. And if any of you have data that you could plug into this, that would be very interesting to see. And we'll continue to work. We'll continue to iterate on these models. But these are some of the things we're going to integrate into the phase 4 of the Measurement Matters paper in terms of helping people understand the value that support's creating.
Hey, Greg, do you have definitions for each of these?
They're emerging. It's so no, I think one of the things that came out of, well, we have definitions, but they're not shared by the industry. So I think one of the things that came out of the conversations around this model at the member summit was, it'd be great if the consortium actually put a stake in the ground around defining what each of these means and how you measure it. Arnfinn uses a model of good, better, best in terms of measurement practices, which I really like. I think it gives people a sense of how they might start measuring some of these things. And then as those measurements improve and evolve over time, they move from good measures to better measures to best measures. And of course, we live in the theoretical world here in the consortium. And so that's kind of what we're portraying here is, wouldn't it be great if we could know this stuff? I do think we will do some team meetings and have some discussions around, can we come to an agreement on what these terms mean and what's a good way to measure it, what's a better way to measure it, what's the best way to measure it. I think that's a work item that we will be taking on in the next year or so. So I'll turn it back over to Matt.
All right, thank you, Greg. A big part of the member summit this year was kind of celebrating two amazing people that have had huge impacts on our industry and on the consortium and the work of the consortium. So we celebrated Greg's career and his move to retirement, naming him the father of KCS officially with a stamp on it. We'll probably try and trademark that as Greg is the father of KCS. But we had a really nice dinner, and people said some really nice things about Greg, which it was a fantastic event, but we definitely would be remiss if we didn't talk about that here, and thank him again for all that he's done for the consortium and all of its members and his work on KCS. We also named Melissa a super innovator. So as I think most people know, we have the Consortium Innovators and they get the Thinker statue. Melissa has had an unmeasurable impact on KCS and on the work of the consortium. And so she was awarded a super innovator for all of her contributions, and wanted to make sure we called out that a big part of the event was celebrating both Greg and Melissa and all that they have done for so many people over the years. And it was heartwarming to hear how many members talked about not only the work that they have impacted, but how they have both had personal impacts on people's careers, on how they think about things, and, you know, really have built an industry that many people at the member summit have built careers around. And it was really nice to see all of the thoughts and comments and wishes that people were giving them. I know that many people on this phone were at the member summit, and I think it was a very, very nice undercurrent to the entire event was the celebration of Greg and Melissa. So wanted to say thank you once again to the two of them for everything that they've done for so many people and so much of the work of the consortium over the last many, many years.
Hear, hear.
And then just in summary, wanted to talk about some of the upcoming events that we have. These are the in-person events. You can also go to the website and find some of the upcoming web sessions. The closest is the Emerging Digital Automation team meeting in Vancouver, British Columbia. Then we'll be at the KCS Academy World Tour in London. There will also be a KCS Academy World Tour in Boston in September. So those are clearly the ones that are highlighted in Academy Blue. So if you can make some of these meetings, they would be fantastic. We are still working on maybe some of the details of the further out program team meetings and looking at how some of the topics that came out of the member summit, out of the open space sessions, and the ongoing themes and trends can shape the work that we do in our upcoming program team meetings. We will also be back in Europe in October in Hanover, Germany for program team meetings. So if you are located in Europe, it would be fantastic to see you at that event. And then we have our executive summit in September and our leadership committee meeting in December, which we will be sending invites out to for sponsor and benefactor level members to attend those events. And with that, that is kind of a brief overview of an amazing 3 days that took place in the Cliff House on the coast of Maine. And I don't know if there are any questions or if anybody who attended the event had any other points that they would like to make about what took place in the member summit.
I keep thinking about Corey's presentation and his comment that if you have a crappy process and you automate it, you have a faster crappy process, which kind of gets back to the, knowledge is the great enabler in terms of it, garbage in is garbage out all the time and everywhere.
I did notice that was retweeted several times, the crappy process automated. All right, if there are no questions or other comments, that was our brief overview of the Member Summit, and we will hopefully in the coming weeks be announcing where the Member Summit in 2020 will be. We are actively working on that and hope to see everybody there.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.